Sarah, the daughter of Joel. Her tragic loss and Joel's inability to be able to protect her has shaped his character into being what we see: tough, aggressive, jaded, and broken. His view of the world forever changed when his little girl was taken from him. At a time when the world was falling into chaos, with much of what constituted a normal life would no longer exist, a family life in a house in the suburbs ripped away from many. But even before what would become known of the virus, it was one person, one following orders, that would end the life of Sarah whilst Joel held her, attempting to shield her. It wasn't the virus-ridden creatures that would infest the world that took her life. It was a person murdering in cold blood out of fear of Joel and Sarah having been compromised with the virus. But if they were so quick to eradicate the innocent, what world were these people trying to save and protect? A world where infection or guilt is predetermined. The loss of Sarah, which weighs upon Joel, is central to how his character acts and behaves throughout The Last of Us, but it's also him having been a father that explains why he makes certain decisions and acts out in certain ways at times. His life will become transformed by the introduction of this new young girl into his own personal world, and he will ultimately once again take on that father figure role and be responsible for her. We see the reluctance of Joel in agreeing to take a caretaker role over Ellie, partly due to the responsibility of needing to look after someone physically weaker and less experienced as him, but also because if Ellie should get injured or even die, then guilt would most definitely weigh heavily upon Joel. Even before the blackout of the virus, Sarah is the centre of Joel's world, and that's taken from him. Where Ellie is that last ray of light and hope which may lift the darkness that has infected the world and provide a cure, Ellie is also what Joel needs personally. Beneath the tough exterior and somewhat cold treatment of her at times, we see just what Ellie means to him the longer we play. But at the start of the game, Joel is anything but open when it comes to taking Ellie on as a responsibility, and it's understandable considering she is a young girl, which would hit close to home with Joel. But as the game continues and we see how Joel interacts with her, especially during the first half of the game, I got a feeling that Joel almost feels a sense of guilt to get close to her, as if by doing so is betraying Sarah. As we get close to the end of the game, and after Ellie has taken care of Joel after his accident, we see how Joel actually feels when he encounters an upset and vulnerable Ellie after having killed David.
Stop!
Fucking touch me!
It's okay. It's me. It's me. It's me. Look. It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh.
It's okay.
We hear Joel refer to Ellie as baby girl, a term which Joel wouldn't use lightly, but also at a time when Joel would also be feeling relief. Joel carries the guilt that he couldn't protect his daughter and that he wasn't there for Ellie when killing David, but at that moment, I feel it's the first time he truly sees Ellie for who she is and what she represents, not only in terms of a cure for the virus, but how fond he has become of her. Even as we witness the last scene where Joel swears to Ellie he's telling the truth, we see him lie.
Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
The lie of a parent in order to protect the well-being of their child. The world is already a very harsh place, and Joel believes that Ellie should not need to shoulder the burden of being the world's last hope for some sort of normality and survival. Whether Ellie actually believes Joel or not is unknown, but there is enough there in this scene to suggest their relationship can still grow. The loss of Sarah sets Joel on the path to what his character has become, but it is the character of Ellie that has the ability to return Joel to that loving father figure he was. He may no longer have the quiet suburban life, but he does have a caring and capable companion, one whose sense of humour is reminiscent of his daughter's.
sure your friend will be missing this tonight. It's light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa!
Ellie forms the basis of the game, both as a character the player empathizes so much with, and also of her importance with developing a cure for the virus. But even with such an important goal to achieve, it's the growth between Joel and Ellie, both together and as individuals, which drives players to keep wanting to unravel what happens in the main story and the personal challenges of our main characters. Where players become captivated by these characters and the world they exist in. Where the sense of hopelessness is real, but where Ellie is that last ray of light which may lift the darkness that has infected the world. The performance of Ellie is a huge reason as to why this game is such an incredible accomplishment, for without it, players would never be connected and care enough about her as a character for the weight of the circumstances to have their true effect. This in turn affects the character of Joel, as without being so connected to Ellie's character, Joel's own struggles and responsibilities throughout the game would not be as apparent. But Naughty Dog, through their incredible talent and understanding of their characters, never paint these two characters and their relationship as simply black and white. The Last of Us is played almost entirely in the grey area, where right and wrong, morals and principles are never always so obvious. Even the way the characters act and react to each other forces players to see these characters as real people and not caricatures of what they are meant to be, with human enemies that also inhabit the world and who will bring harm to Joel and Ellie.
Wait! Let me go. Please.
You just come after her.
Even those who they would consider acquaintances, such as the Fireflies and Marlene, if not go as so far as to call them friends, mutually beneficial arrangements between the characters for a mutual outcome. One area where we see Ellie's strength and vulnerability is in the house, where Ellie admits to Joel that she knows about what happened to his daughter. We see the frustration of Ellie when being treated as a child.
Is this really all they had to worry about? Boys? Movies? Deciding which shirt goes with which skirt? It's bizarre.
Get up. We're leaving.
And if I say no?
Do you even realize what your life means? Huh? Running off like that, putting yourself at risk? It's pretty goddamn stupid.
Well, I guess we're both disappointed with each other then.
What do you want from me?
Admit that you wanted to get rid of me the whole time.
Tommy knows this area
Oh,
better
fuck
than...
that.
Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of? That I'm gonna end up like Sam? I can't get infected.
A child who has needed to grow up very quickly, and one who wasn't given the opportunity to have a normal childhood. But when discussing Sarah with Joel, instead of Joel opening up and letting Ellie into his pain, he shuts her down with a coldness that no parent could do to a child.
I'm not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
Joel's character is not in a place mentally or emotionally quite yet where he can become close with Ellie. The relationship between Joel and Ellie is complex, and we play the game for hours before seeing any form of bond start to grow between them. This builds throughout the game until gamers finally see how close they have become to each other, but not only how they've become attached, how they need each other. We've seen them help each other whilst traversing the environment, but as the game approaches its end, we see how their emotional connection gives them both strength and purpose. Ellie is once again becoming close to someone, and we see Joel rescuing her from the hospital. This time her companion will do anything to protect her. The loss of his daughter could never be replaced, but even with Joel's thick exterior, Ellie has endeared herself to him, and we see Joel cradling her just as he did with Sarah. Joel couldn't help the tragic fate that was to befall his daughter, but Joel is determined to make sure Ellie survives at all costs, as any parent would for their own child. Joel putting his own life on the line to rescue her proves that these two people, once strangers, have now become a team, and not simply for convenience or for a mutual benefit. They trust and care for each other. Joel with rescuing Ellie, and Ellie looking after Joel when he was severely injured, putting her life on the line to gather the supplies that he needed to survive. Then we cross paths with the stranger of David, who represents the other end of the spectrum to Joel. We are wary of David from the moment that we first see him, and nothing really changes our opinion, even though we do fight alongside him. He is a character similar to that of Marlene, in that what they value is at odds with what Joel values, and both meet their death, albeit in different ways. Joel kills Marlene to protect Ellie from her in the future, whilst Ellie kills David for her own survival. We can overhear some thugs refer to Ellie as David's plaything, which paints an even worse side of his character that is alluded to but never actually seen. After Ellie kills David, we see the relationship between Ellie and Joel become one of love, to fear the loss of the other and the threat of each of them perhaps becoming alone once again. We can see how close they've become as we watch them together once again in this scene.
Stop! Stop!
Fucking touch me!
It's okay. It's me. It's me. It's me. Look. It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh.
It's okay.
Players hear what they need to, but then silence from our characters and the music plays. This alone conveys the emotions the characters feel and how players are witnessing the growth of them as individuals and together. When I speak about the world of The Last of Us, I talk about it in two different ways. Firstly, we have the world itself, what it looks like, the various locations we travel through, and how it intersects with other elements of the game such as gameplay. But the second way I view the world of The Last of Us is one where it becomes a character in itself, alongside our main protagonist. The world of The Last of Us goes beyond a mere video game world and becomes something that shows players just what happened in this world. At almost any time throughout the game, players can stop and simply explore their immediate surroundings and think to themselves, what actually happened here? The environments that have been created have a lived-in feel. We of course have the game-like elements of finding conveniently placed ammunition or items, but beyond that, we see the aftermath of a world that has been torn apart. Buildings that have been destroyed or almost beyond repair, the destructive force of water throughout the insides of those buildings, but also how it's life-giving as well. How it has helped transform these large cities, once home to hundreds of thousands or millions of people living their lives, into an amalgamation of city and nature. We see buildings overcome with greenery, a place that nature has now started to take back as human intervention is no longer present, and the humans that remain are more concerned about their own survival within this brave new world. But this brave new world is also linked to our main characters. Once separate, they have now come together as they navigate its dangers. At the beginning of the game, Joel is reluctant to become a chaperone to Ellie, but as the two become close and Ellie's resistance to the virus is known, Joel becomes aware that Ellie will always be hunted, hence the death of Marlene by Joel. In this brave new world, Joel is prepared to do more than ensure his own survival. He's there to provide protection for Ellie and all she offers and represents. How Ellie's immunity to the virus plays out is still unknown, but even though she is valuable to the world, where do humans draw the line between what is best for the majority and what you're prepared to sacrifice in order to get it? Is the world of The Last of Us better off with having Ellie dissected in the hopes of finding a cure, most likely killing her in the process? Is the loss of her life a small price to pay for what could be learned and how many people could be helped from her death? Or does a civilization find another way to achieve what they want? Do you knowingly or intentionally kill one person as a means to an end? And if you do, where does that line of thinking end, if it does at all? How far down the rabbit hole will humans descend until you move well beyond the world that you are trying to save? A world where the weak aren't protected as they should be. There are 3 further scenes I'd like to focus on, and all of them come towards the end of the game, where players learn even more about the world, the characters, and their relationship, and how far they're willing to go to protect what they feel they must. But also, how Naughty Dog once again shows that not everything in life can be seen as black and white, and especially in this post-apocalyptic world. Firstly, we have one of the most, if not the most iconic scenes in the game in my opinion, and that's this scene with the giraffes.
Come here. Hurry up. Come on.
Hey there. So fucking cool.
This one scene is almost giving players a break from the harshness of the game, from the virus, from death. This scene is where we watch both characters simply share a moment. To stop and behold something that is a reminder of the old world, and one that introduces Ellie to something she has never seen before. Her excitement, disbelief, and interest also reminds us that she is still only a young girl. One who has been through a lot, and one who is wise beyond her years, but still a child. Joel takes on the role of a father, teaching Ellie not to be afraid and to pet it. There is such a calmness about this scene, and the characters take it all in with the players. We see the last giraffe go out of sight, a vanishing grace, and with that, the characters return back to the harsh reality of the world and their situation. The last action of the game comes about when we take control of Joel once again and save Ellie from the Firefly Hospital or lab. This is where Ellie is at her most vulnerable and Joel at perhaps his most determined. This is where instincts of a father kick in, and nothing will stop him from saving this girl, which has now become so close to him. Being so close to the end of the game, you would think that this may be an epic battle or shootout in order to save Ellie and escape. But the similarities between this escape and the situation Joel and Sarah found themselves in at the very start of the game can't be underestimated. Moving through the hospital with Ellie in your arms isn't too difficult, which is partly why this section is such a triumph. Without players dying and needing to replay the section, the player can focus on those similarities and the significance of them. We see Marlene interrupt Joel and Ellie's getaway, and this is where we see Joel be at his most brutal. Marlene tries to persuade Joel to hand Ellie back over to the Fireflies and promise that she won't feel any pain with what they are planning. But her comments are enough for Joel to know what to do.
You can't save her. Even if you get her out of here, then what? How long before she's torn to pieces by a pack of clickers? That is, if she hasn't been raped and murdered first.
It ain't for you to decide.
It's what she'd want. Wait! Let me go. Please.
You just come after her.
He shoots Marlene once and then finishes her off. His brutality is front and centre, and whether it was or wasn't the right thing to do will vary between each player. But just as a parent to any child, your main job is to protect them from harm and to ensure their safety. In the world of The Last of Us, the line between right and wrong is sometimes very thin. Just as Ellie may provide answers to a cure for the virus, Marlene and the Fireflies poses a threat to Ellie. Is it selfish of Joel to think of one life over those of many? Is it selfish of Marlene to go so far as to killing a young girl in an attempt to achieve her goal? The last scene where the credits roll once again shows that the relationship between these two characters, whilst it has grown close, it isn't exempt from the realities that exist within all relationships. Ellie asking Joel if he has told her the truth is met with a simple "I swear," but we can see the pause of Joel as he's thinking of this answer, but we also see the pause that Ellie gives before her acceptance of the answer.
Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
Does Ellie actually believe it is the truth, or does she have some doubt? Having taken control of the character of Ellie, we can see how capable she is in this world, and she may be coming to the same realization herself. Instead of needing to rely on somebody else, Ellie may be ready to rely on herself. The scene signifies that Joel is once again taking on that parent role as he feels it's best that Ellie does not know everything about what's transpired around her earlier. As a parent, you try and protect your children at all costs, and many times it's about shielding them from the harshness of the world, but making sure they know enough to be able to survive in it and cope when things may go wrong. In this scene, Joel is thinking of Sarah, and we can tell this by the slight touching of the watch he wears, a present from his late daughter. Joel wouldn't be taking his answer lightly, and whichever answer he chooses will have repercussions. But either way, Joel has become the one person who Ellie has counted on throughout much of the story. Someone who has protected her even when it meant the death of others. Joel can count on Ellie to be the companion that he needs. Although young, Ellie is capable in combat and has proven that she has Joel's back. But she also brings back an innocence that Joel had lost. Ellie will never replace Sarah, nor will Joel ever want that. But this relationship may have run its course in its current form. Losing a child such as Joel did, I'm sure there were times where he perhaps contemplated he no longer wanted to go on living himself. Whatever the future holds, every day will still be a struggle for him. But Ellie is that bright spark within a world filled with grey.